Annette is part of the Marine Spatial Planning Global, or MSP Global, expert on data, and she's working at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, IOC. So Annette, you will have about 13 minutes, including time for questions, and there will be a countdown clock just to help you to bring things to a close. So I hand over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm just sharing my screen. Does that work?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Annette Scheffer. I'm with the MSP Global Initiative of IOC UNESCO, and I have the pleasure to present to you our two new data toolboxes. One is about how to develop a spatial data infrastructure for MSP, and the second one about how to use ocean observation for MSP, both of which can be transferred directly to the context of ocean atlas development. It's both quite data-heavy subjects. It's not treating any particular example, but more the general data side of things. So I'm trying to run you through the most important points and keep the balance between the toolbox content and application in the context of this meeting. So first of all, I would like to thank all the experts that were involved in the development of these two data toolboxes as co-authors, contributors, reviewers, and editors. Some of them are involved in this workshop, Will today, for example, and a few more in the next days as speakers. It's a long list of names. We couldn't include them here on the slides. It's too many people, but they are listed in the individual publications. So this was a truly collaborative work, and it's reflecting the expertise and the input of a global set of experts in spatial data infrastructure and ocean observation in the context of maritime spatial planning. So these data toolboxes are really situated at the interface area of ocean science, planning and conservation on the one side, and data integration, use and management on the other side. And the results are these two beautiful documents that you can see on the right side of the screen. Volume 1 is for spatial data infrastructure, which I will call now SDI, and volume 2 is for ocean observation, and both of which are relevant to ocean atlas development. So just briefly as an overview, why are the subjects of SDI and ocean observation important for ocean atlas development? An SDI is really the backbone of data management, which is the foundation of any digital ocean atlas. Just a few key points relevant in this context are data organization and storage, database management systems, data input, access, visualization, analysis, security, data governance. So the SDI is supporting all these aspects, which, as you probably all agree, are fundamental in ocean atlas development. And this is why it's so important to set up a good SDI as early as possible during a data project. Then we have ocean observation data, which is fed into the SDI. Ocean observation refers to the monitoring of the ocean's state and variability through the physical and biogeochemical and ecological properties. It can also include human activities, for example, fisheries. In addition to ocean observation data, we can also link up additional data to the SDI, for example, terrestrial or socioeconomic data. And the SDI is then providing the possibility of working with that data, as I said above, to organize it, to visualize, to analyze, for example, through an ocean atlas, as you can see here on the right, just as an example screenshot. So now a few words on the definition of a data toolbox. What exactly is that? We often get the question, what is a data toolbox? So the overall goal is to make data accessible. That's often a quite inaccessible and scary subject for many people. So we want to make it accessible. It combines different technologies, different approaches, systems, software, good practices. It showcases a few examples and case studies. And this box of tools and guidance is available to Atlas developers, to analysts, to users, to all MSP practitioners to set up and use an SDI and integrate ocean observation, which will then support the Ocean Atlas project. So in the data toolbox, we have, of course, text sections, but also illustrations, tables, and lists to compile information, boxes to highlight particular aspects or give tips, checklists to go through when setting up things. We also have a number of case studies from around the world to give examples of different aspects of SDI or ocean observation use from current MSP initiatives. And we have included a number of flowcharts to compile and simplify complex processes into easier to digest overviews. So now I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the content of these two data toolboxes. So just to give you a taste of what tools and subjects we have in there. So let's have a look at the first data toolbox, how to develop a spatial data infrastructure for MSP. We are walking through the important aspects in several chapters. You can see that here on the left. The first chapter is about what you should keep in mind when preparing to set up your SDI. The next chapter then is about data itself. Then we move on to web architecture, data security, privacy, and safety. Then we have a chapter about governance and setup. And then the last chapter is about monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation of the SDI. I'm going a little bit more in detail for some selected chapters now. So the first chapter, as I said, is about the preparations. So before you set up the SDI, we have a suggested sequence of tasks to run through. You can see that in blue, and then a few suggested feedback loops that feed back into the process in orange, so that people can go through that before setting up the SDI and think through a few things and then prepare the setup properly. The next chapter is all about data, and we have split that up into 3 subchapters. The first one is about data fundamentals. We talk about data frameworks, categories, how to address uncertainties in the data, how to harmonize data formats and symbols. And then we talk about various aspects of metadata, standardization, the importance of including solid metadata in your SDI, and we talk about how to make it discoverable and readable. Second subchapter is about data architecture, and that covers different data models and formats, management systems, storage options, connectivity, and data access, analysis, and visualization options. And you can see here on the right, one of our graphics, where we really try to condense complex aspects, and data architecture is complex, into graphical representations for a better understanding. So we have the graphics, we have the flowcharts, really to make it as digestible as possible. And then we have the third subchapter, and that's about good practice for data, the fair and care principles, how to approach data management and quality control, for example, versioning and clean data maintenance. We also cover data accessibility and sharing under the good practices. And here on the right, you can see again our graphical summary for the important aspects of good practices for data. The next chapter is about web architecture. We talk about the connectivity and interoperability of the SDI on local, national, regional, and global levels. How to deal with growing data volumes and different aspects of the web portal. So that interface, that very important interface on the web that we need to construct too. Here on the right, you can see the graphic representation of SDI connectivity on the different levels. So we go from local data systems at the bottom to the global systems at the top. This should again help to make this complex subject more understandable. The next chapter covers the data security, and this includes the subjects of data sensitivity, how to share data, how to build trust, how to manage sensitive data, and we again have a suggested sequence of steps to make an SDI secure and safe. On the right, you can see that. The next chapter is about SDI governance and setup, where we cover things about frameworks, data management, sharing, communication, engagement, and also human resources. And then the last chapter covers the monitoring and evaluation and adaptation, so the development of the SDI. And we suggest methods for monitoring and evaluation, success criteria, for example, key performance indicators, and we talk about how to evaluate and improve the SDI. Again, as this can be quite long and complex, we are offering a flowchart of steps to follow and checks to carry out to make this process a little bit easier. Okay, that was the first one in a very brief overview. Now I move on to the second data toolbox, and that is about how to use ocean observations for MSP. We are using the first data toolbox as a reference and regularly refer back to particularly data related subjects. So we are starting with an overview of the benefits of taking that step of integrating ocean observation into an ocean atlas. So there are various benefits, and all of that should lead to an overall improved MSP. In the first chapter, we give an overview of ocean observation concepts, techniques, and platforms. You can see that figure here that shows the different sampling platforms. We also talk about key initiatives in ocean observation, data collectors, aggregators, coordinators. We give a list of examples and access options for each of those. And we particularly talk about options of putting data into the atlas by the users, or putting data into the system by the users. So extracting data, but also inputting data. The next chapter is about the data in ocean observation. We talk about key parameters and essential variables. Below you can see the essential ocean variables developed by the Global Ocean Observing System, GOOS. We discuss data formats and go back to the subjects of data system interoperability and how you link that up to the global system. We give detailed explanations about how ocean observation data can be put into the system, here on the example of the OBIS mapper. The next chapter, we go into detail about which ocean observation data is suitable and helpful for ocean atlas projects. So it's one thing to know about the data in terms of formats and structures, but then it's equally important to discuss what the different indicators and data sets mean in the context of MSP and when it makes sense to use what. So we have compiled a detailed list of which variables or derived metrics is suitable for particular analytical tasks, which we hope will be helpful in selecting a suitable data for each task. And in the last chapter, we dive a bit into the future and talk about emerging trends in ocean observation. We give an overview of technical advances and what they mean for data availability and resolution. We talk about digital twins of the ocean. Big data and AI will be relevant for ocean observation and MSP. We give an overview of potential future developments of AI integration. Another important point is future enhanced global cooperation in ocean monitoring and MSP, and of course, climate change and different scenarios on the table. We also cover emerging industries as potential future ocean observation contributors, for example, offshore wind farms, and the need to establish clear data sharing protocols. So in conclusion, our aim is to support ocean atlas development with data management and integration, and to make this easy and accessible. So the data toolboxes are open access resources with access via the UNESCO digital library in PDF format and via the dedicated website that's hosting an online version, and both accessible via the MSPglobal website. And I will be posting the link to the online version on the chat later. So we hope that many of you will use these resources and that it will open up the area of data and all that complicated stuff that people are afraid to touch, but that's so important to MSP practitioners and Ocean Atlas projects. Thank you very much, and I hand back to Ned.
Yes, thank you very much, Annette, for that very clear presentation. And I think that you really kind of cut to the core of what ICAN members have been kind of working with over the many years. We have also written some guides and case study documents over the years. And I think it's fundamental for Atlas developers, the material you have there. But I think just to note to our participants that there's a number of links just posted in the chat where you can find further information on the material that Annette has talked about. And as Will has said, they are pretty amazing toolboxes. Just one very quick question, Annette. When you talked about the spatial data infrastructure, there's all the elements of that, of which all are fundamental. But if you were to pick one, let's say, that you would see as almost the pillar that holds the whole edifice in place, what do you think people new to this area should really focus on getting right if they are looking to developing atlases or, let's say, some element of a spatial data infrastructure?
I would say that the data architecture, so that thing that people rightly think is really complicated, and it is complicated, but it's not impossible to get there. And it's very important to get the fundamental data structure and the construction of the database right. And then you can fill it up and you can modify it and adapt it and plug things in. But to get the, I would say it's the chapter 3, 3B, the second subchapter about data architecture, data formats, that kind of thing, that I think is the most important one.
Thanks, Annette. So I think we can flag that as a top tip. Chapter 3B is the one to make sure you really focus on. So thank you very much for that very concise as well answer to my question. Thanks, Annette.